Insurgency in Balochistan. Foreign support. Afghanistan. During 1970s, the then Afghan President Mohammad Daoud Khan established militant training camps in Afghanistan for Baloch rebels. These were the first modern training camps in the country. The former Pakistani ambassador to the U.S., Hussein Haqqani, wrote that in the 1970s training camps were set up in Afghanistan by Daoud to support Baloch separatists in Pakistan. According to a student paper, Pakistan's fear that a communist Afghanistan would embolden the Baloch and Pashtun Marxist separatists in the western Pakistani province of Balochistan was confirmed when Daoud began supporting Marxist Baloch and Pashtun groups in eastern Afghanistan. Daoud Khan was removed from power in Afghanistan in 1978 by a communist coup. In 2012, Pakistani Interior Minister Rahman Malik stated that Baloch Republican Party chief Burhan Bugti was operating militant training camps in Afghanistan, which were dismantled only after Islamabad conveyed its knowledge of these camps to Kabul. Malik said that the camps in Afghanistan were responsible for training up to 5,000 insurgents, and that Bugti had hired 3 large houses in Kabul. The Pakistani minister claimed that the president of Afghanistan, Hamid Karzai, had accepted that militants based in Afghanistan were fueling terrorism in Balochistan. The Pakistani Tribune wrote that in response to Islamabad's request, Kabul has formally given its assurance that it will stop the infiltration of militants from Kandahar to Balochistan's border district Chaman. Previously, Karzai had always denied that Balochs in Afghanistan were supporting an armed struggle in Balochistan. According to WikiLeaks cables, Karzai said in a 2007 conversation with U.S. officials that Baloch leader Bugti had once tried to call Karzai, but he had refused for the sake of good relations with Pakistan. Now he cannot forgive himself for refusing. Karzai assessed that Pakistan had troubles with many other tribes too, as a result of its trying to divide and conquer and turn the tribes against each other. Pakistan needed to address the bigger picture, Karzai urged. Baloch leaders such as Bugti left Afghanistan for Switzerland. Against the backdrop of heavy criticism of Pakistan's paramilitary frontier corps over its alleged role in forced disappearances and human rights violations in Balochistan, the chief of FC troops in Balochistan, Major General Ubaidullah Khan Khattak, said in June 2012 that over 30 militant camps had been established in Afghanistan and were being used to launch terrorist and anti-state activities in Balochistan. On December 25, 2018, Aslam Baloch alias Achu and 6 other Baloch Liberation Army (BLA) commanders were killed in suicide attack in Kandahar, Afghanistan. BLA spokesman confirmed death of Aslam Baloch and 5 other BLA commanders. Afghan sources claim General Abdul Razik Otsakzai has housed Aslam Baloch and other separatists in Kandahar for years. Tolo News reported that Aslam Baloch has been residing in Afghanistan since 2005. India. According to Malik Siraj Akbar, a Baloch journalist living in exile, there is a consensus in Pakistani authorities to allege that India is behind the insurgency in Balochistan without feeling a need to share evidence for Indian involvement. Pakistan has repeatedly accused India of supporting Baloch rebels, starting with an attack in Gwadar in 2004 where 3 Chinese engineers were killed. Right Neville writes that Pakistani government and some Western observers believe that India secretly funds the Balochistan Liberation Army, BLA. The former American AFPAC envoy Richard Holbrooke said in 2011 that while Pakistan had repeatedly shared its allegations with Washington, it had failed to provide any evidence to the United States that India was involved in separatist movements in Balochistan. He did not consider Pakistan's accusations against India credible. Holbrooke also strongly rejected the allegation that India was using its consulates in Afghanistan to facilitate Baloch rebel activity, saying he had no reason to believe Islamabad's charges, and that Pakistan would do well to examine its own internal problems. In 2009, a Washington-based think tank Center for International Policy published its report stating that no evidence of India's involvement in Balochistan had been provided by Pakistan and the allegations made by Pakistan lacked credibility as Baloch rebels had been fighting with ineffectual small arms. India has categorically denied the allegations, pointing to Pakistan's failure to provide evidence. Burhan Bugti stated in a 2008 interview that he would accept aid from India, Afghanistan, and Iran in defending Balochistan. When asked about the alleged link of his group with India, he is reported to have laughed and said, "Would our people live amid such miserable conditions if we enjoyed support from India?" Baloch National Front Secretary Karima Baloch claims the allegations against India are an excuse to label ingrown Balochistan freedom movement as a proxy war to cover up the war crimes Pakistani state has committed in Balochistan. On March 29, 2016, Pakistan claimed that it had apprehended a serving Indian naval officer, Kulbhushan Yadav, who was allegedly tasked by Research and Analysis Wing, RAW, to destabilize Pakistan. The Indian government recognized Yadav as a former naval officer but denied any current links with him and claimed that he took premature retirement and was abducted from Iran. In 2016, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi criticized Pakistan and alleged human rights issues in Balochistan during an Independence Day speech. Pakistan condemned Modi's remarks, calling it an attempted diversion from violence in Kashmir and a reiteration of Pakistani allegations vis-à-vis Indian involvement in Balochistan. Modi's comments were welcomed by exiled Baloch separatist leaders but sparked anti-India protests by political organizations and locals in Balochistan. On June 8, 2017, India raised the issue of human rights violation at Balochistan at the United Nations Human Rights Council, UNHC, that Pakistan has systematically violated the human rights of its own citizens in Balochistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. Iraq. On February 10, 1973, Pakistani police and paramilitary raided the Iraqi embassy in Islamabad, seizing a large cache of small arms, ammunition, grenades and other supplies, which were found in crates marked Foreign Ministry, Baghdad. The ammunition and weaponry was believed to be destined for Baloch rebels. Pakistan responded by expelling and declaring persona non grata the Iraqi ambassador Hikmat Suleiman and other consular staff. In a letter to U.S. President Nixon on 14 February, Bhutto blamed India and Afghanistan, along with Iraq and the Soviet Union, for involvement in a conspiracy, with subversive and irredentist elements which seek to disrupt Pakistan's integrity. Israel. According to author Mark Perry, CIA memos revealed that in 2007 and 2008 Israeli agents posed as American spies and recruited Pakistani citizens to work for Jundallah, BLA affiliate, and carried out false flag operations against Iran. The Baloch Society of North America, BSONA, was a Baloch lobbying group founded in 2004 in Washington, D.C. by Dr. Wahid Baloch, a graduate of Bolan Medical College who had gone into self-imposed exile in the United States in 1992. Between 2004 and 2014, his group had been trying to gain American, as well as Israeli, support for the independence of Balochistan. He held meetings with several American congressmen and allegedly had meetings with several CIA officials. Dr. Baloch had long claimed that the Pakistani state was committing acts of genocide against the Baloch people, and that Islamabad's aim was to plunder the province's vast mineral resources. In January 2014 he released a letter appealing to the United States and Israel for direct assistance in preventing an alleged killing spree of Baloch people by the Pakistani army. In May 2014, Dr. Baloch disbanded the BSONA, claiming that the War of Independence of Balochistan was actually a war of independence of Khans, Nawabs and Sardars. He has since formed the Baloch Council of North America, VCN, which has dedicated itself to working with all democratic and nationalist forces in Pakistan to secure Baloch rights through democratic, non-violent means, within the Federation of Pakistan. Soviet Union. Syed F. Hasna alleged that during the Soviet-Afghan War, 1979–1989, the Soviet Union helped establish the Balochistan Liberation Army, which chiefly operates from southern Afghanistan. U.S. The U.S. State Department's official policy rejects secessionist forces in the Pakistani part of Balochistan, in support of the country's unity and territorial integrity. The U.S. has, however, expressed concerns over human rights issues and urged parties in Pakistan to work out their differences peaceably and through a valid political process. In February 2010, a Jundullah leader captured by Iran, Abdul Malik Rigi, alleged on Iranian TV that the U.S. had promised to provide Jundullah with military equipment and a base in Afghanistan, near the Iranian border for its fight against Iran. Rigi did not mention assistance in fighting Pakistan, which Iran accuses of backing the Jundullah, according to the BBC. The U.S. has denied links with Jundullah, and according to the BBC, it is not possible to determine whether Abdul Malik Rigi made the statement freely or under duress. In late 2011, the The Balochistan conflict became the focus of dialogue on a new U.S. South Asia strategy brought up by some U.S. congressmen, who said they were frustrated over Pakistan's alleged continued support to the Afghan Taliban, which they said led to the continuation of the war in Afghanistan. Although this alternative to the Obama administration's AF-PAC policy has generated some interest, its advocates clearly do not yet have broad support. In the 1980s, the CIA, the Iraqi Intelligence Service, Pakistani Sunni extremist group Sipa-e-Sahaba Pakistan, and the Mujahideen-e-Khalq supported a Baluchi tribal uprising against Iran. A February 2011 article by Selig S. Harrison of the Center for International Policy called for supporting anti-Islamist forces along the southern Arabian Sea coast, including Baluch insurgents fighting for independence from Pakistan, as a means of weakening the rising tide of anti-American passion in Pakistan and heading off any alliance between Islamabad and Beijing, Pakistan having granted China access to a naval base at Gwadar.